Okay, so we've got the last section now before we break for lunch, and that's going to be Warren Allworth. He's going to be speaking to us on inventory forecasting and some applications there. Cool. Do we have the... You want to you guys hear me? Sorry.
Cool. Okay, number one. Cool, awesome. I know you guys are all hungry, so I'm going to try to blitz through all of this really quickly. Just to give you guys some context in terms of what we did, so we focused this was a project that we took to production for one of our clients, but chatting to them, it started off with them not really understanding what the problem was, talking to different stakeholders. Some of them thought they need more space in their warehouses to stock more parts because they're an aftermarket warehousing company. They sell parts for trucks in the automotive industry in America, and we really just needed to dive down into the detail in terms of what their actual problem was. And you can see when we had to frame it as an analytical problem, it really came out that they needed to minimize their holding cost. That's the cost that they have incurred by actually having that in inventory. What is the opportunity cost for the operating capital being held up in their stock, as well as back order costs. So that's a big issue for our client in terms of orders coming in from their clients and them not being able to fulfill on those orders. So their customers have to wait. You'll see when I go through it, it is a big problem for them. So that's really what funded this project. The chairman of the company basically mandated that there will be no part back order for longer than 2 weeks, which doesn't seem like realistic, but some of these parts have 6 to 8 months holding periods. So if you get it wrong, you're going to suffer. But yeah, high level approach, basically what everybody's been saying the whole day. Got to get your data, make sure that it's the right data so that you're not modeling the inadequacies of the business. So you need to really make sure that that data is correct. We took the data, we built a forecasting model. I'll dive into more detail around that now. Once we had the model, we were able to use R to basically automate the ordering process. So that alleviated a lot of time and helped them out quite a bit. And then of course, when you work with data, you need to do some reporting. Okay. Now we had a tech conference, so I want to quickly get the business side of things out of the way. But what we did was, once we built this model, this was really the first data science project for the company. So they needed some evidence that we can actually use data science. So what we did was we simulated. We went back to 2015, when it was still cool, and we basically ran the model as if we were to do it for 2016. Compared what happened in 2016 to if they'd used the model, which was really powerful for us. So you can see on the right-hand side, 2016, they had roughly 1,500 units actually go on back order. This is just the top 10 parts that they carried on discussing in their management meetings. If they had used the model, they would have been no worse off. There was just one part that matched basically what was actual, and that was a tricky part because it only really started selling in July of 2016. And forecasting, you can only forecast based on history. You don't know what's going to happen in the future if there's no data for it. But you can see the model corrected itself pretty quickly. Just in terms of some numbers, so they're currently sitting at $9 million inventory. That's excluding parts that they ship directly from vendors or drop ship. They could actually get away with fulfilling 85% of their clients' orders by just holding half of that, which is really cool. If you're an owner of a company, you can free up 4.5 million rands operating capital. Yeah, and the back order number dropped quite significantly, quite quickly. So getting into the more technical side of things, so first step of the data science project is exploratory data analysis. So we did some analysis in terms of the demand, came up with like 6 different categories: parts that used to sell that don't sell anymore, parts that have never sold. We just use a safety stock number. So that's basically, what does the business want to invest to make sure that they can invest or fulfill those orders. And there's a whole nother conversation that we can have around that. Some parts have really seasonal patterns, so we just use a normal time series analysis for that. Pretty basic stuff. The new demand and random demand, so this is where you can, you do your Markov chains or whatever, but being the first data science project, we needed to keep it simple, to keep that narrative for business. So we just use a simple probabilistic model for that. And then the erratic demand, to also make it easy for the buyers or the company to manage it. we just had a constant stock level, and we basically calculated what's the worst situation you'll be in during your lead time. So what was the maximum demand during your lead time? So getting into the code, we found it easy for version control and sharing results that we broke up our R code into different concerns and services so that we could sync it up with TFS and share it amongst the team, do reviews, and make alterations like that. In terms of data import and structure, so we just kept it simple ODBC connection to our SQL Server because it was sitting on the same database. We find it quite useful to use in the forecasting package, time series data structures. Can manipulate the data quite readily and quite quickly in there. And then in terms of the seasonal pattern, we went through like a whole lot of research on this, just in terms of some hypothesis testing. R's got a hell of a lot of time series functions. You can break it up into seasonal and trend components and then try for the polynomial. But we just used the TBATS component because, well, it was the first thing on Google that came up. Then, yeah, the model selection. The formula doesn't work quite nicely there, but essentially we had a whole lot of models that we could compare. So depending on what kind of use case you were, what part, demand, pattern we saw, we fitted the appropriate models for the time series. Like I said, R has a whole bunch of packages and a whole lot of models, moving averages, etc. So essentially we used the formula that you can't see at the moment, but it's mean absolute scaled error because of the time series. You want to make sure that you're comparing apples with apples and not low periods with high periods. So we just applied that cost function to compare the different models. You can also use sort of ANOVA kind of analysis here to compare the models, but just kept it simple with the cost function. And then we also just calculated a 24-month trend in terms of how is the part moving, so you can communicate to this business so that they know more or less is this trending higher or lower. And we just used the time series linear model to calculate that. Pretty simple stuff. And then the inventory control and management. So if in the warehouse space, you need to give the buyers a range to work in. A lot of analysis data science projects, you give a confidence interval. You almost never give a point estimate. So this just gave us a lower threshold, upper threshold, and more or less where you want to be as a target. And that's a very nice narrative to give to the business. Nothing untoward there. And then the automated ordering, this is something that really helped them out a lot. So they need to raise purchase orders across America for different PDCs, etc. We basically managed the whole pipeline. So we got all the information in terms of what they have on hand, what they've got in their pipeline coming in. We can use the forecast to tell them what they need to order in that period of time. Because as you know, if you've got a part that has a 6-month lead time, if you order it now in their winter period, they need it for summer. So they already need planned for July, August next year, kind of. Well, this year when we were doing the actual project. So if you get that wrong, you're in a bit of a tight space. And we basically automated that whole thing in R. In terms of communicating that to the clients, we believe in like creating actionable insights. So it's all good that we can make like cool visualizations, but they need information to make decisions. So we give them an Excel spreadsheet, as most business users use. It tells them what's available in their pipeline, what is the suggested order for that part, how much do they currently have on hand, how much is in their PDCs, what has been sold over a 12-month period, 24-month period. It gives them all the information for them to make a decision. And then if they want to see that data visually, quite effective that you can see the dashboard on the back there. Got the trends going. We've got KPI indicators telling them it's blue, it's very overstocked, yellow, need to monitor it, it's between your lower bound and where you should be, etc. The heat map shows a nice seasonality. And then you can do the comparison on the bottom there with the line charts and the bar chart in terms of forecasted versus actual. So you can see how it's tracking. The error rate tells you that cost function, basically what is the error in the model at that point in time. Now 31% might sound pretty high, but you'll see the date that I pulled this report is the 2nd of Feb. So we've just forecasted for February. You haven't received any sales for it. So that's going to trend to 0 as the month goes on. So that's the max it's going to be for this month, which is pretty cool. And it's saving them a hell of a lot of money. So cool. If you've got any questions, sharp.
Cool. So that's it for the business session. We're going to break for lunch now. We've got an hour. Lunch will be downstairs on the mezzanine level. And then just two quick announcements. If you think you might have lost a parking ticket